Okay, so we're back to the third phase of self-love, and where, you know, um, we start to rebuild ourselves. And for me today, the topic for today is, why do you have to be broken? And why not be beautifully broken? This is a topic that's very dear to my heart. And I have just, invited a very dear friend, Felicia Kadima, who actually was part of my journey into rebuilding and, finding myself again after the diagnosis of breast cancer. And Felicia has a platform called the True Vine Living, and I'm so excited. This is such an exciting segment that, I think it's something that both of us can actually kind of share our feelings and, just kind of help the next woman. So, Felicia, please tell us a little bit more about yourself and True Vine Living.
Okay, thank you, Juliet. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this beautiful conversation between two good friends. And I'm so honored that Juliet has asked me to join her in this conversation because I've had the opportunity to see her going through her cancer journey. So you have a witness to what she's talking about. And I could definitely vouch for a person that knows about being beautifully broken, which we'll talk about. Like Juliet said, my name is Felicia Kadima, and I live here in the United States. I live in California, and I have a new platform that I recently created called True Vine Living, which is really about helping people to thrive in their health and wellness, mind, body, and spirit, because they're all really important. And so this topic it's a very personal topic. So one thing about Juliet and I is with our friendship is we've always been very authentic with one another. So we're kind of giving you the real deal here. So I hope it helps you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Felicia. Thank you. And thanks for being a part of this. I mean, I was very excited when you accepted to be a part of this. And I'm like, yes, this is good. So, in this journey, why do you have to be broken? Why not beautifully broken? I guess, when I went through the phase, when I went through my diagnosis, of course, I have once mentioned that as an African woman, as a mother, there was so much that you had to go through. And of course, you talk about cancer, which is a death
Ooh.
sentence in Africa. So it's something that, once you go through that, you immediately in your mind, you start building that casket, your funeral before death. So basically you visit the angel of death before time, and you're at your lowest, especially when you've built a certain level of empire for yourself, and then in one day, in one single strike, everything feels like it's all crashing. So I guess my question to you is, when was that moment you felt vulnerable or broken in your story?
Um, as you were talking, I was just thinking how it's so funny how we can be um, Africans living in America or Africans living in Africa. But it seems like when we're going through brokenness, it's so much more heightened than if you were, maybe this is just my perception, if you're an African, if you're an American person. Like you talked about how having cancer, and we know how sometimes as Africans, we look at illness, we go back into our this mindset or these belief systems that say, oh, it's because you did something, it's because it's a curse, or it's because it's this. So it's bad enough that you're dealing with an illness. Now you're dealing with this belief system, this tape that is playing in your head. And I can think about my situation where I was broken in my life. And throughout life, we have so many different moments of brokenness. And but I think that for us Africans, it's always heightened. It's to a higher degree. For me, it was when I was 25 years old, shortly after college. I got pregnant with my son, And it was unexpected. And as you all as Africans know, that that is a big stigma, that is a no-no. It caused a lot of shame in the family. I bore a lot of shame about it. But I knew that I wanted to have my son. And despite what people were going to say, there was a voice in me that told me that I needed to do this. It was not an easy choice. It was not an easy journey because there were people that told me to look at other options, but there was a voice in me that said, nope, this child needed to be here. And so going through that journey, just
Thank
that
you.
vulnerability, um, it's so interesting because being vulnerable is really about people seeing you at your worst, people seeing you in not your in your highest point, and it it's an interesting place to be in. It's an interesting place to be in, Juliet.
Yeah.
And when I look at being broken then and being broken other parts of my life, I can say like right now, I'm going through a situation where I feel like I'm broken. But then versus now is totally different. And that's what I really want us to share with people is how you can still flourish when you are in that place of brokenness and vulnerabilities, which is what I saw you do, Juliet. I remember you, still being flawless in your dress, in your attire, and still putting up this beauty of yourself to kind of protect us, and I thought that was so beautiful. And I remember, you started getting all the ladies together so we can just get together and fellowship. I remember the photo shoot that we did. So that to me was being beautifully broken, despite everything that you were going through. And I'm getting teary-eyed right now because
I am too. I am.
I remember the one time when I was over and you didn't have your wig, you didn't have anything. And that became so real to me. It was like, oh my gosh, she really does have breast cancer. And how outside of your home, you were just kind of helping protect all of us. You were thinking about us, but every day you were living with this reality. And when I saw that, I will never forget that moment. So probably a long answer, but.
Well, yeah, that moment for me, having gone through that painful journey, I remember telling myself, this cannot be it. I didn't know what was at the end of the tunnel. I just didn't even know. I didn't know if I was going to see the next month, let alone the next day, because I would go to the hospital and see all those women who had stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And I remember when I went to the hospital, I met these wonderful ladies who had the stage 1 and stage 2. I had the stage 3C. And I just kept saying to God, why didn't you give me a stage 1, a stage 2? Why do you have to give me a stage 3? But the reality hit me when, I became very attached to this women. And one day I came in and some of them were no longer there. And, it really hit me hard that, now I think it's, forgive my words, but it's time for you to shut up because it's not you. You don't own your life. You can't tell that story. And it really, it taught me a very vital lesson because at some point I had to sit back and feel that crack.
Mhm.
As painful as it sounds, I had to sit back, think of my life, reflect on things, and just kind of feel the crack. And when you feel that crack, you understand, the the meaning of life.
What do you mean
And
by that crack? What do you mean by that?
the crack I felt was being a cancer patient,
Mhm.
you
The
know,
reality, would you say
the
the reality?
reality of what
Okay.
I went through, what I was going through. Yeah, this is your reality. You can
Okay.
be mad, you can be angry, you can, try to shy away from the world, but at some point you're going to have to face it, and find a way to kind of rebuild your happiness of whatever situation you're in. So for me, that was that crack for me, because it was a crack in my life. I never, you never think about cancer,
Mhm.
so me having cancer at an early age, I was young, you
Mhm.
know,
You
not
were
that
like what,
young, but
35?
young in my 30s. I was
Yeah.
34. So, that was a crack for me. So I had to learn to understand that crack and move past it and start rebuilding my life around that and just, learn to live again.
Mhm.
So that, initial thought for me, of course, the initial thought is death sentence,
Mhm.
children, and all of that. Where do I
Yeah.
start? So
Mhm.
it is a moment in your life where you just kind of tell yourself, you know what? I'm not gonna let this put me down. I'm not gonna be a victim to the situation that I find myself in. So I had to start one day at a time and having wonderful girlfriends like you guys. I remember the first time we initiated the meeting
Mhm.
that we were supposed to
And
have
get
a lunch.
together.
Yes,
Mhm.
and I said to everyone, let's talk about everything but what I'm going through. I want to feel life again. I don't want to feel, this negative energy. I don't want to feel down. I wanted to feel life, and that's living through you guys. And it was such a wonderful experience having to,
Was. We had a
have you
good time.
guys. And I remember everyone was just kind of quiet and watching me, and it was quite a moment for me.
I actually, when we used to get together, I actually forgot about it. I didn't even think about it. So when we would be out and stuff, I didn't even think about the fact that you were dealing with this. So that's why when I was at your house that day, I was just like, oh, this is real. It was like a fairy tale for me up until that point. I was like, oh my goodness. But what's so interesting is that I think part of the reason why people have a hard time being in difficult, broken situations. And so again, broken can be you have a illness diagnosis. It could be a marriage. It could be a job
Anything.
layoff. It could be your child is struggling. It could be anything. And so I think the issue is that we resist when we resist those moments in our life, that's where the challenge is. And that's where you can't be beautifully broken because you're in this resistance phase. Like, why did this happen to me? This is not supposed to happen to me, but it's not like what happened to you when you got the crack, the reality that this is what it is. Then you can be like, okay, so what do I do with what I have? And
Yeah.
I will tell you, for me back then when I was dealing with my situation, I was in complete denial. I couldn't believe I put myself in that situation, and I just couldn't I couldn't get I was horribly broken. Okay. I was not beautifully broken. But later on in my life, in other circumstances, I've learned to surrender
Mhm.
and also to celebrate being broken because sometimes vulnerability and brokenness, it can be the soil to breed new things in your life. It could be the platform that will propel you to your purpose. So I had a conversation with a mentor of mine, and we were talking to like sometimes we're so eager to live in the spring and the summer, but we don't understand that the winter, we need the winter because in the winter that's when we are nourished. All the nutrients are being nourished and fertilized so that in the summer and spring they are, coming out. So everybody has different broken moments. One of the things that I like for people to take away from this is acceptance and surrendering, not accepting the circumstance, but accepting that, okay, this is where I am. Okay, but now what can I do with what I have? That's
Exactly.
what I want to share.
Learning that you're worth more than the pain,
Yep, you are not your
so that
circumstance.
you're
Mhm.
not your circumstance. Exactly. So for me, I learned through when I started the friendship, hangouts, the girlfriend hangouts. I needed a breather. I needed to let myself know that I was more than that pain I was going through. I needed to exist. I needed to live for my children, for myself. And the fact that as an African woman, of course, my mother came all the way from home to be with me during the treatment phase, and I knew that even with my friends, everyone was watching me. Everybody was hanging on to whatever energy I had. So I needed to kind of tell myself that I was worth more than that. Of course, it wasn't an easy journey. There were days you had your ups and downs, but at the same time, being able to keep pushing yourself and, keep telling yourself, I'm better than this. Did you have that moment where you felt like you were more than the pain that you were going through?
Before I answer that, I want to go back to the fact that, and I'm I'm getting teary-eyed again. Even though you were going through your situation, I remember you also wanted us to feel beautiful. And that was when you had organized that photo shoot for us. And I will tell you that I felt so beautiful from that photo shoot. And I know some of the other ladies did. And so even though you were going through what you were going through, you also did something that filled us and stuff. So I just want to say that. Okay, now I forgot your question. What was the question again?
Ooh, okay, I'm trying, Felicia. You're trying. I guess my question was, when was the moment you realized that you were worth more than the pain that you were going through?
For me, it took years. With that particular situation, it took years. But in other situations, it really takes, sometimes it takes the support of other people lifting you up. Because sometimes you're in a situation where like you feel like you're in a hole and you can't get out. And so one of the things that I've learned is that sometimes you have to reach out. It doesn't have to be your family. It doesn't have to be your immediate friends. I mean, you can, if you have friends that are able to, that's great. But sometimes you might have to reach out of your comfort zone, because one of the things that I realize is that, and I have to stress this point, that prayer for me was a critical piece for me in my broken moments throughout life. Even back then, even in my 20s, when I was in situations and I brought prayer into it, yep, God began to bring me resources. And the resources are not going to be what you expect. It's going to be people that you're not used to dealing with. It's not, and if we're talking about us Africans, it may not be Africans. It may be other people of other nationalities that will be that angel that will come and help you and say, you know what, hey, this is how I see you. So for me, I really have to say is that through my time of prayer and asking God for help, the help came through other people that helped me to see that I did not have to live in that pain. And I'm just thinking back at one of my girlfriends who would say to me, like, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, and stuff. So that's my response to that.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I would start by saying, when I would watch you, I always told you, Felicia, I admire you. And you're like, what? What's wrong with you? In our broken phases, what you don't see in yourself, people see in you.
Yeah.
And I never saw the strength you saw in me, but I kept looking at you and a lot of other women as my source of strength, because it was where I could go and forget about the pain that I was going through. So for me, the moment I knew I was worth more than the pain was when I started learning to take some space and time for me.
Okay.
And there were times when a lot of people didn't know. I would drive, I think it was about an hour, 30 minutes to Holy Hill. Remember
Mhm.
Holy Hill?
Yep.
It's a place where I just went for me.
Mhm.
It was a place where I did my meditations. It was a place where I didn't have to connect with anyone but
Mhm.
the higher power.
Yep.
And, it was my time to cry if I wanted to. It was my time to just let it out, and that really helped me because it was such a quiet and remote place where I needed to just let it all out, and just creating that time so that I could be that strong person, strong mother, strong woman, and start rebuilding and telling myself I was beautiful and I was enough. And that really made a huge difference. I know a lot of times people looked at me and said, you don't look like you're going through cancer. I was going through my stuff. Like, when you came in, I was shocked that you were shocked that I didn't have my wig on and I had my bald head. You stared at me in shock, and I was staring at you like,
Yeah.
what? this this has always been me.
Yeah.
So for me, I always tell people, having to recognize the crack,
Mhm.
understanding the pain, doing something about it.
Mhm.
And, like, it's not a 1 day journey. It's
Nope.
taking it one step at a time, but constantly telling yourself, I'm enough, I'm beautiful, and I can do this. And again, having to surround yourself with positive people around you to
Yeah.
help you break through that pain, that moment you're going through. And for you, I mean, you've been my ride or die from day one. From day one, we've gone through this journey together, as women. And sometimes we talk about our heritage, Africa, where we've come from, and how do you manage this? How do you deal with this? So it's been quite a journey. Of course, the journey never ends; it
Yeah.
continues.
Mhm.
And I'm thankful for people like you. And it's it's a journey. It's a journey, but I
Don't
can
go
say
there.
we're like, beautifully broken in
It
our way,
is.
in whatever journey that we're going through. Just having to learn that it's okay to sometimes, get into a situation and be able to find, get yourself
Yeah.
together. And I remember you asking me questions. You would ask me, how do you deal with this situation? And if I didn't know it, we figured it out together.
Yeah. And I feel like as Africans, it's like there's no room for brokenness. I feel like for us Africans, like there's so much judgment and judgment, condemnation when we're going through those broken moments in our lives. It's like you know you can't be that way. Like if you're a faith-filled person, like, oh my goodness, it's because you're not praying hard enough. It's because you did something wrong. It's because your family has a curse. It's because you have a curse. So for us Africans, there's like no room to be in a position where you're broken because there's so much judgment and condemnation that's why for some people they can't be beautifully broken because we already know how our society is going to, and I'm sorry my fellow African brothers and sisters, but we are so hard, number one, on ourselves, and I think it's because we're so hard on ourselves. That's why we judge other people and stuff. So that's why I think that us talking about this and having this conversation will help people to see that it's okay. I mean, it happened. It's part of the human experience. I mean,
True.
even when you study people, whether it's biblical people or people going through hard, difficult times, tears of brokenness, that is part of the human experience. And I believe that it was designed that way. that we sometimes cannot be who we are intended to be unless we're broken, so that we can be put back together. And stuff.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Exactly. You know, being able to understand the obstacles that,
uh,
you know, and those just understanding that there are obstacles and being able to, within those obstacles, learn to find self love,
yeah.
love yourself. You know, I always tell people, find you first, love
Hmm.
you first before anything else. If there is anything that smells or looks like a negative energy, walk away from it,
Yeah.
because that's one less drama you don't need in your life. You know, just try to find your peace, find your happiness, because once you're happy, everything around you falls in place. If
Yeah.
you're not together, if you're not in that place of peace and happiness, it's really hard to kind of understand how to give love. You cannot give what you don't have.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm so thankful that you were on this with me, Felicia. Thank you so much. And, you know, I guess the message for people is that don't feel like because you're broken, you cannot find your peace and happiness. You cannot be beautifully broken. It's okay when you find yourself in that situation. Learn to live within whatever it is that has put you in a situation. Find ways to make
Hmm.
yourself happy. Find ways to love yourself,
Yeah.
because being beautiful broken is okay.
Yeah.
It's okay,
Embrace it.
because if I'm beautifully broken, I don't want you to change me. I
Yeah.
don't want you to, you know, tell me what I'm not doing right. I need you to come into my life and appreciate me for who I am and where I am. So, women, men, wherever you are, especially cancer patients, this is not the end of the journey.
Yeah.
You don't stop living because you're going through a situation. You
Yeah.
have to keep trying. It's one day at a time. It's, you know, it's not the end of the road. I know it's not going to be easy, but from one cancer patient to another,
Hmm.
it's not the end of the road. Love you.
Hmm.
And always remember, I love you. I always love you. Thank you, Felicia.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.